Well, first of all, President Biden has told y'all now he's not getting out of this race. He's not going anywhere. He says he's staying in this run for the presidency. He says he's going to be here, and he said it again last night. And the crowd told him they want him to stay.
I've got your back. A lot of speculation lately. What's Joe Biden going to do? Is he going to stay in the race? Is he going to drop out? Here's my answer. I am running, and we're going to win. I'm the nominee of the Democratic Party, the only Democrat or Republican who has beaten Donald Trump ever. And I'm going to beat him again.
Now, if you couldn't decipher that, they were saying, don't you quit, and we've got your back. And yes, it's one crowd. Chances are, if you're coming to a Biden-Harris rally, they support Biden-Harris. But not nearly as much a collective show of enthusiasm from elected Democrats. On one hand, there is the president's longtime close friend, Congressman Jim Clyburn, and he says he's riding with Biden.
Should the conversation about the president getting out of this race, should that conversation continue?
No, it shouldn't. Let Joe Biden continue to make his own decisions about his future. He's earned that right, and I am going to give him that much respect. If he decides to change his mind later on, then we will respond to that. We have until the 19th of August to open our convention.
Then you have former Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Even after almost 2 weeks of the president saying that he is not getting out of the race, here's Pelosi.
It's up to the president to decide if he is going to run. We're all encouraging him to make that decision because time is running short.
He says he's decided that there is no time to think about it. He's already decided he's going to stay in the race. 24 former Democratic lawmakers are calling for an open convention, but they need Biden to release his delegates. No sign he's going to do that. 20 current members of Congress are calling for him to get out of the race. Even some who are not are essentially shrugging and saying, well, he can run if he wants to.
Only he can withdraw. He's made it very clear that he won't, and that's the end of the story.
But do you guys...
The president has determined that he is the best candidate, and given the fact that he's won the nomination, he's got all the delegates, only he can make that determination.
And so far, no member of the Congressional Black Caucus has publicly called for the president to withdraw. And if President Biden is going to overcome this challenge, it will be black voters who will push or carry him through the convention. A CBS News poll, look at this. The question here, Joe Biden should be running for re-election. 26% of registered white voters say yes. 34% of Hispanic registered voters say yes. 58% of black voters here thought that Biden should stay in the race, more than any other demographic. Joining me now is Derrick Johnson, President and CEO of the NAACP. The president will be speaking to your convention in Vegas next week. Good morning and good to have you. Let me start there with a welcome to you for coming on the show at this hour. Why do you think that black voters are more likely than any other demographic to say to the president, stay at the top of this ticket?
Well, in a two-party system, you have two candidates that have been chosen by delegates across the country, and they won their primary. We are approaching the first major party convention on this upcoming week, the second in only a few weeks. And African Americans are more concerned with the policies that will come out of the decision of who becomes president than they are the individuals or any single performance. You consider Project 2025. Many African Americans understand that that would recreate an apartheid system in the United States, adversely affecting our interests and minimizing our ability to participate as full citizens. So this is less about candidate A or candidate B. This is more about the policies that we are concerned about. This is really more about whether we have a functioning democracy or something less than.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about Project 2025 right after my conversation with you. But there are some who might be looking on and saying, well, wait a minute. If the president steps aside, you then have a black woman vice president who would likely be the front runner to get that nomination. The delegates would likely be interested in moving toward her. She'd have access to the money and the resources. Why not make a move toward the vice president, Kamala Harris?
For African Americans, we're saying the table is set, and until there's a change, let's continue to proceed. We are in July. We're looking at a November election. The party's conventions start next week, and the Democratic Party is in a few weeks. It's late in the season, so many people are anxious and concerned with what are we doing at this late date? Why are we now trying to create something where everybody will say we don't need a free fall process. We need a process to ensure that in this two-party systems where the candidates have been chosen, we can move forward. African Americans are less concerned about the individuals and more concerned about the policy priorities that the parties are pushing forward. Yeah. And that's the concern. It's not about individuals, it's about the policy.
So NAACP is not a political organization. You do not endorse, but you have spoken about, as you said, not candidate A or B, but you've spoken about the choice between democracy and fascism that is on the ballot. Are you any more or less confident today that, as you frame it, that fascism that's on the ballot will be rebuffed in November than you were, a month ago, or say before the debate?
Well, let's be clear. The NAACP, we're nonpartisan. We don't endorse political candidates or parties, but we are very political because politics is what defines public policy that determine the quality of life of individuals. We're concerned about the policy. Secondly, we believe candidates in their rhetoric when they say certain stuff. Anyone to say that I would be a dictator for a day, that means they'd be a dictator for a term. Anyone who endorsed a platform that will subvert democracy should be of concern, not only for the African American community, but for all Americans. And so we are continuously evaluating what candidates are stating, but it's very clear, this choice for African Americans, that we want a functioning democracy that's inclusive of our ability to fully participate and not a democracy that's masquerading to be such as we've seen in 1930 or 1940, where African Americans by and large were excluded from fully participating.
I appreciate the correction on political versus partisan. You released a Black policy agenda this year as well. So let me ask you one more thing. This kind of caught my eye. Tim Alberta wrote a piece for The Atlantic about Trump's plan for a landslide win. And he recounts discussing a Trump aid strategy with campaign senior advisor Susie Wiles and their fight to win Black men 18 to 34. And here's what he wrote. He reiterated the aid sentiment. He said, for every Karen we lose, a reference to white women, we're going to win a Jamal or an Enrique. And then Wiles nodded in approval. She said, according to Alberta, that's a fact. I believe it. And I so believe we are realigning the party, she told me. What's your reaction to that framework?
First of all, I respect Tim Alberta and how he's approached much of the discussions over the last several years. His books are phenomenal. But it really highlights the racial undertones that campaign take in terms of approaching African-American voters and seeking to really win them over on legitimate policy issues to improve the quality of life, as opposed to pick off individuals just to get enough to win an election only to harm those individuals. We must, as a society, recognize the threat that's in front of us. And that threat is one of reshifting the concept of democracy in this country. And if we don't choose wisely, we will not recognize this country in less than 4 years.
Derrick Johnson, I thank you for waking up so early to be on with me. You're out on the West Coast, and good luck on a successful convention.
Thank you.